The afternoon sun beat down on the row of modest houses, the air heavy with the hum of cicadas. Monica Lewis juggled grocery bags in both arms as she guided her two children up the walkway to their home. Her daughter skipped ahead, eager to be inside, but stopped suddenly at the front door. "Mom, what's this?" the little girl asked, pointing to a sheet of paper taped at eye level. Monica set the bags down, her chest tightening before she even read the bold red letters stamped across the top. Notice of eviction. Her hands trembled as she pulled the paper free. The words blurred for a moment. 30 days to vacate, legal action threatened. Signed by her landlord, Mr. Peterson. Before she could process, a familiar, gravelly voice cut through the heat. "You might as well start packing, Monica." She turned to see Peterson leaning against the fence that divided their yards, arms folded, a smirk spreading across his weathered face. His polo shirt clung to his round belly, and his eyes gleamed with cruel satisfaction. "You can't do this," Monica said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I've paid my rent every single month. On time. Always." Peterson shrugged, his smile widening. "Doesn't matter. I've decided you don't belong here anymore. This house isn't for people like you. I've got better tenants lined up." Monica's son stepped closer to her, his small hand clutching her shirt, sensing the venom behind Peterson's words. She placed a protective arm around both her children, her heart pounding with equal parts fear and anger. "You have no right," she said firmly, though her voice shook. "You can't just throw us out." Peterson chuckled, low and mocking. "Watch me." He tipped his chin toward the notice still clutched in her hand. "That's all the right I need." The grocery bags lay forgotten at Monica's feet as she stood on the porch, her children pressed close against her sides. In that moment, her home, the place where she'd tucked them into bed, where she'd worked so hard to create stability, suddenly felt fragile, threatened. But even as fear gripped her, another feeling rose stronger: resolve. Because Monica knew this fight wasn't just about four walls and a roof. It was about her dignity, her children's security, and the truth Peterson had no idea was about to come to light. The paper in Monica's hand crumpled as she tightened her grip. Her children stood pressed against her, their wide eyes darting between her and the smirking man at the fence. "Mr. Peterson," she said, forcing calm into her voice, "I've done nothing wrong. My rent is always on time. You cash my checks every month. So why are you doing this?" Peterson leaned heavier on the fence, as if settling in for sport. "Because I can. Because this is my property, and I decide who gets to live here. And let's be honest." He let his eyes travel disdainfully over her modest clothes, her tired face, her two children clinging at her sides. "You don't fit in with this neighborhood. It's time you left." Her daughter's lip trembled. "Mom, are we going to lose our house?" The words pierced Monica's heart like a blade. She knelt down quickly, brushing her hand gently against her daughter's cheek. "No, baby," she whispered, though her own chest ached with doubt. "This is our home. Nobody's taking it from us." Behind her, Peterson scoffed. "We'll see about that. Go ahead, cling to your fairy tales if you want. But in 30 days, you'll be gone." One way or another, Monica stood, her eyes narrowing. "You're wrong," she said, louder now, anger cracking through her voice. "You think you can bully me because I'm a single mom, because you think I don't have the power to fight you. But I'll fight with everything I have. My kids deserve better than your lies." Her defiance didn't wipe the smirk off Peterson's face. If anything, it made him chuckle, low and bitter. "Good luck," he said, tipping his baseball cap before turning away. "Court always sides with the owner." The screen door slammed behind him, leaving Monica and her children standing in the heat. Her groceries were still scattered across the porch, but she barely noticed. For a moment, she felt the weight of it all pressed down on her shoulders. The exhaustion of holding two jobs, the loneliness of raising children on her own, and now the looming threat of losing the one safe place they had left. Her son tugged at her hand. "What are we going to do, Mom?" Monica straightened, her resolve hardening. She squeezed his hand gently, her eyes fierce even through the tears threatening to fall. "We're going to fight," she said, "and we're not going to lose." 3 days later, Monica was coming home from her evening shift at the diner when she noticed a white envelope tucked under her front door. Her heart sank before she even picked it up. The bold lettering across the top confirmed her worst fear: summons to court. Her fingers trembled as she tore it open. Inside was the official notice. Peterson had filed for eviction, claiming she was unlawfully occupying the property. A court date had already been scheduled for the following week. Monica sank onto the porch steps, the paper fluttering in her hands. For a moment, she let her shoulders sag under the crushing weight of it all. She had fought so hard to keep her children safe, to give them a sense of stability. And now, with a few strokes of a pen, it all felt like it could be ripped away. Behind her, the screen door creaked open. Her son stood there, his hair messy from sleep. "Mom?" "What's wrong?" She quickly folded the papers and forced a tired smile. "Nothing you need to worry about, sweetheart. Just more work for me." But inside, she knew it was more than work. This was war. Later that night, after tucking both children into bed, Monica cleared the kitchen table and spread out every piece of paper she had. Rent receipts, bank statements, letters from the housing assistance program, every scrap of proof that she had done everything right. Her eyes lingered on one document in particular, a thick packet she had received months ago from the housing office. Inside it, folded carefully, was a deed with her name on it. She had read it over and over when she first received it, scarcely believing it was real. The program had been her chance to finally own the home she had worked so hard to secure. Peterson knew nothing about that paperwork. He had kept cashing her checks without acknowledging that she no longer owed him anything. Was it ignorance or malice? Monica didn't know, but she clutched the deed to her chest and whispered into the quiet house, "This is ours, and no one is taking it from us." Across the street, she could see the glow of Peterson's porch light. He sat out there with his beer, chuckling with a neighbor, loud enough for her to catch snippets of his arrogance. "Court'll be easy. She won't stand a chance. I'll have my house back in no time." Monica closed her blinds, her jaw set. He thought she was powerless. He thought she would crumble. But in just a few days, the courtroom would see the truth. The courthouse smelled faintly of polished wood and old paper. Monica walked through the doors, holding her children's hands, her file of documents pressed tightly against her chest. She wore her best blouse, ironed the night before, and her nerves showed only in the way she gripped the strap of her handbag. Inside the small courtroom, the hum of whispered voices echoed off the paneled walls. Neighbors had come, curious to see the drama play out. Some sat on Peterson's side, nodding to him as he strode in confidently, a smug grin plastered across his face. He wore a tailored suit, his tie knotted perfectly, and he walked with the swagger of a man convinced the outcome was already his. "Morning, everyone," Peterson said loudly, as if he were hosting a gathering instead of a legal proceeding. He patted the back of one supporter. "Won't take long. She'll be out by week's end." Monica kept her head high, ignoring the murmurs. She guided her children to a bench, where they sat quietly, watching with wide eyes. Then, she took her place at the defendant's table, smoothing the papers she had brought. The bailiff called the room to order, and the judge entered, his robe flowing as he settled into his chair. He adjusted his glasses, looking over the docket. "Case of Peterson versus Lewis," the clerk announced. Peterson immediately rose, his voice smooth and confident. "Your Honor, this case is simple. I am the legal owner of the property in question. The defendant has lived there as a tenant, but she has overstayed her lease and refuses to leave. I am seeking immediate eviction." He laid a stack of papers on the judge's desk with a flourish, as though the performance alone would seal the case. His eyes flicked toward Monica, gleaming with satisfaction. The judge nodded. "And you, Ms. Lewis, do you have a response?" Monica stood slowly, her heart pounding. The room seemed to grow quieter, the weight of dozens of eyes on her. She took a deep breath, steadied her voice, and said, "Yes, Your Honor, I do." She lifted the file in her hands. Because she hadn't come to court just to defend herself. She had come to reveal the truth. Peterson rose again, puffing out his chest as if the courtroom were his stage. He adjusted his tie, cleared his throat, and spoke with the slow confidence of a man who believed he had already won. Your Honor, he began smoothly, pacing in front of the judge's bench, this is a straightforward matter. I have owned that house for 15 years. I graciously rented it to Miss Lewis because she needed a place for her and her children. But leases expire, and I have decided to terminate her tenancy. She has refused to leave, forcing me to pursue legal action. He tapped the stack of papers on the desk with emphasis. Here are my tax receipts, my original purchase agreement, and a copy of the lease she signed. She's had plenty of time to make other arrangements. I have every legal right to reclaim my property. He turned slightly, making sure the spectators could hear. I've been more than patient, Your Honor. But this is my house, and she, he jabbed a finger toward Monica without looking at her, is just a tenant who doesn't know when her time is up. A murmur rippled through the audience, some nodding, others shifting uncomfortably at the sharpness of his words. Monica sat still at the table, her hands folded over her documents, her face calm but tight with emotion. The judge glanced over Peterson's papers, flipping through them silently. Mr. Peterson, he said, I see here you've presented documents establishing your historical ownership. But you're claiming she is unlawfully occupying the house now? Exactly, Peterson said quickly, his smirk widening. She has no legal standing to stay there. She's stalling, hoping to live rent-free. It's manipulation, plain and simple. People like her know how to game the system. His words hung in the air, heavy and cutting. Monica's jaw tightened, but she didn't speak. Not yet. Peterson gave a final, self-satisfied nod and returned to his seat, confidence radiating from every movement. He leaned back, crossing his arms, and whispered to the man behind him, This won't take long. She's done. All eyes turned back to the judge, waiting. The weight of Peterson's performance pressed heavily on the room. But Monica's fingers brushed against the folded deed inside her file. Her pulse steadied. She knew the show was almost over, and the truth was about to change everything. The judge adjusted his glasses and looked toward Monica. Miss Lewis, do you have anything you'd like to present to the court in response to Mr. Peterson's claim? Monica stood slowly, gathering her papers. Her hands trembled at first, but as she stepped forward, a quiet strength seemed to settle over her. She laid a thick folder on the bench, sliding it carefully toward the judge. Yes, Your Honor. I do. The judge opened the file. Inside was a neatly bound packet with government seals, notarized signatures, and bold lettering across the top. He flipped through the pages, his brow furrowing in concentration. The courtroom leaned in, the silence deepening with every turn of the paper. Finally, the judge lifted one sheet higher, adjusting it for a clearer look. His eyes moved from the document to Peterson, then back to Monica. This, he said, tapping the page, is a deed. Peterson sat up straighter, his smirk faltering. What? That's impossible. She's lying. The judge's tone sharpened. This deed is dated 6 months ago, transferred through the city's housing assistance program. It bears the official stamp and seal. According to this, he looked squarely at Peterson, Miss Monica Lewis is the current legal owner of the property in question. Gasps swept through the courtroom. Neighbors craned their necks, whispering fiercely. Monica's children, seated quietly on the bench, clutched each other's hands and smiled with relief. Peterson's face flushed crimson. He shot to his feet, stammering, That can't be right. She's just, I never sold. Monica's voice, steady and clear, cut across his sputtering. You never paid attention. You kept cashing my rent checks, even after the transfer. You ignored every letter I sent. This house is mine. I fought for it, I qualified for it, and I worked every day to keep it. You tried to take it away because you thought I couldn't fight back. But I can. And I did. The judge rapped his gavel once, silencing the room. He looked directly at Peterson. Mr. Peterson, unless you can produce a more recent deed that contradicts this one, your case is not only baseless, it borders on harassment. The weight of his words dropped like a stone. Peterson collapsed back into his chair, his arrogance shattered. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Monica allowed herself a small, defiant smile. The truth was no longer a secret. It was on the record. The judge leaned back in his chair, tapping the deed once more with his pen. The tension in the room was so thick it seemed even the air held its breath. Finally, he spoke. This case is dismissed. Miss Lewis is the rightful owner of the property. The eviction notice is null and void. The sound of the gavel striking wood echoed like thunder. The courtroom erupted in murmurs, shock, disbelief, even a few cheers from those who had suspected Peterson's cruelty all along. Monica stood frozen, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Then, slowly, she exhaled, the weight she had carried for weeks finally lifting from her shoulders. Her children ran to her side, hugging her legs. "We get to stay, Mom," her daughter whispered, beaming. Monica smoothed her hair and nodded, her eyes glistening. "Yes, baby. This is our home." Across the room, Peterson sat slumped in his chair, his face pale, his arrogance drained away. The judge turned his stern gaze on him. "Mr. Peterson, I suggest you tread carefully. Any further attempts to harass or intimidate Ms. Lewis will be met with legal consequences. This court does not tolerate abuse of power." The words cut deeper than any humiliation the neighbor's whispers could bring. Peterson avoided every eye in the room as he gathered his papers with shaking hands. Monica lifted her chin and walked past him, her children at her sides. She didn't gloat. She didn't speak. Her silence, steady and dignified, spoke louder than any victory speech could have. When she stepped out of the courthouse doors into the sunlight, the warmth on her face felt different. It wasn't just another day. It was freedom. For the first time in months, Monica smiled without fear. Her children laughed beside her, their voices bright, their steps light. The fight was over. The truth had prevailed. And the home that had once felt fragile was now hers, untouchable, unshakable, protected not just by law, but by her own resilience.